Our film starts with Miles, sitting and listening to music, completely absorbed in it. His father calls out to him and says, "Are you ready for school?" Of course not, he's not ready. Miles starts preparing his things quickly and rushes out toward school, jumping around like a fool. He trips over his shoelace and falls in front of a police car. It turns out that his father is the officer who owns the car, and we know that Miles and his father don't get along due to their differing interests. We also know that Miles's father hates Spider-Man because he and his police friends are in real danger while Spider-Man swings on ropes like an acrobat. They arrive at the school where Miles doesn't want to stay because his friends are at his old school, and this school is for the elite only, meaning it's for the distinguished members of the town. But his father refuses, and they argue. Miles gets out of the car, and his father says, "This is for your own good. I love you, Miles," to which Miles replies, "Okay." But then his father turns on a microphone and says, "You have to say you love me too," which leaves Miles extremely embarrassed in front of the entire school. At this point, we see Miles tired and stressed from the overwhelming amount of material and books. As mentioned earlier, this school is for the elite, meaning everyone in Miles's class is exceptional and high-achieving. Miles enters his physics class, and the teacher says to him, "Why are you late?" He replies, "Time is relative. Maybe you came early." Of course, the whole class looks at him and mocks him, except for one particular girl. Miles sits down, and the girl says to him, "I liked your joke," even though it wasn't funny at all, but it made her laugh. Miles's results come out, and he gets poor grades because he wants to leave the school and return to his old one. Feeling bored with school, Miles goes to his uncle Aaron, who seems like a very careless person, but Miles loves him and enjoys talking to him. His uncle asks him about the new school and his classmates, and Miles tells him there's a girl in his class he's interested in. After that, his uncle takes him to a spot to practice their favorite hobby, graffiti. Miles starts drawing on the walls, and after they finish, a spider bites him. Miles kills the spider, and they continue on their way as if nothing happened, without Miles knowing what will happen to him because of that bite. The next day, Miles wakes up and puts on his clothes to go to school, but he notices changes happening to his body, including his clothes becoming too tight for him. He arrives at school feeling nervous and sees the girl he was interested in earlier. He tries to follow the advice his uncle gave him, but he fails to act naturally in front of her, and his face starts sweating. He realizes he's embarrassed himself. Miles asks her for her name, and she replies, "Gwen." He puts his hand on her hair, and when he tries to remove it, he finds it stuck to her hair and won't come off. The only solution is to cut the part of her hair that stuck to Miles's hand. Miles walks around the school afterward, feeling anxious because all the students are talking about what happened to him. He meets the security director, who tells him he knows Miles ran away from school yesterday, but Miles pretends not to understand and starts running. He enters a room to hide, only to discover it's the security director's office. No luck could be worse than this. He keeps trying to escape but finds himself sticking to everything until he climbs out the window. He continues walking on the wall, stumbling and sticking to everything around him. He almost falls off the building but sticks to the wall with his feet. The girl sees him in this situation and is utterly amazed, saying, "This is definitely not an ordinary person." Miles eventually makes it to his room, and when he enters, a Spider-Man magazine falls on him. Miles flips through the magazine's pages until he discovers that the spider that bit him while he was drawing on the wall has turned him into Spider-Man. At this moment, Miles runs to his uncle's house and calls him, but an answering machine responds, informing him that his uncle is away. Miles then takes the subway to reach the spot where the spider bit him. While on his way, he considers calling his father to tell him everything that has happened, but he changes his mind. He arrives at the station and begins searching for the spider until he finds it. He tries to touch it, but he hears a noise and starts looking for its source. He finds Spider-Man fighting the Green Goblin. Just as Miles is about to run away, he finds himself caught in the middle of the battle. He almost falls from a high place and dies, but Spider-Man catches him and saves him. Here, Spider-Man discovers that Miles has the same powers as him and promises to help him. However, before that, he plans to destroy the device he was fighting the Green Goblin over. Spider-Man had just started sabotaging the device when Kraven the Hunter and the Green Goblin catch up to him before he can do anything. Suddenly, Kingpin appears, and it becomes clear that he is the one behind Kraven and the Green Goblin. He activates the device, and a problem begins to arise, throwing the entire world into chaos. Spider-Man tries to escape, but the Green Goblin grabs him and places him inside the radiation emitted by the reactor. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, and the entire world is destroyed. At this moment, Miles steps out to see what's happening and finds Spider-Man under the rubble. He approaches him and hears Kingpin's voice. Spider-Man gives Miles the part responsible for sabotaging the device and tells him to destroy it and then hide. Spider-Man speaks with Kingpin, but his words anger Kingpin, who then kills Spider-Man. At this moment, Miles makes a noise with his foot out of fear, revealing his location through his shadow. Miles runs away, and Kingpin orders Kraven to kill him. Kraven begins chasing Miles, but fortunately, he can't catch up. Miles returns to his family's home, but his father is upset because he left the school dorm and allows him to stay at home as usual. At the same time, the news of Spider-Man's death is announced on television. The next day, the entire town gathers for Spider-Man's memorial. At this time, Miles buys a Spider-Man suit and attends the memorial, deciding to become the new Spider-Man. He climbs to the top of a building to test his abilities but feels the building is too tall, so he climbs down and goes to a slightly shorter building. Miles runs to jump off the building but trips over his shoelace and falls embarrassingly to the ground. He finds himself landing on the flash drive responsible for sabotaging Kingpin's device, which Spider-Man had given him, and it breaks. Miles wonders why he put it in his pocket while jumping off a building. At this moment, Miles feels frustrated with himself and goes to Spider-Man's grave to apologize. Suddenly, a shadow appears behind Miles. The person is about to approach and touch him, but Miles shocks him with his hand. It is later revealed that this person is Peter Parker. We then know that Peter Parker came from a different dimension after the explosion, and it becomes clear that the explosion opened a portal between dimensions, pulling all the Spider People into Miles's world. However, the Spider-Man Miles saw had particles that were incompatible with our world. Suddenly, the police arrive, and Miles takes Peter Parker and escapes with him to the school dorm. Miles tries to convince Peter Parker to help him save the world and teach him, as the original Spider-Man had promised. However, Peter initially refuses due to Miles's carelessness and breaking the flash drive, but he eventually agrees. Afterward, they go to Kingpin's lab to create another copy of the flash drive. Peter Parker enters to carry out the mission, leaving Miles outside, but Miles feels uneasy. Suddenly, Kingpin arrives at the company, so Miles goes to warn Peter Parker and tells him he will stay with him because he can't bear to see Spider-Man die again. Peter Parker tries to create a copy of the flash drive on the computer, but, as usual, Miles messes things up. A doctor from the team working in the lab hears them and goes to see what's happening. Here, a new ability of Miles is revealed: invisibility. Peter Parker delegates the task of copying the flash drive to Miles while he deals with the doctor who heard their noise. Miles opens the computer and finds many files in front of him but doesn't understand anything, so he takes the entire device with him and leaves. Peter Parker tries to open the door for Miles to escape and manages to free himself from the doctor until he can get away. When Peter Parker finds out that Miles took the screen with the computer, he takes the screen and throws it away because they don't need it anyway. At this moment, the entire company starts chasing them, along with the doctor who overheard them in the lab. We later discover that this doctor is Dr. Octopus, or Doc Ock. She takes the device, but suddenly, Spider-Woman appears and saves them, managing to take the device from Doc Ock. We learn that Spider-Woman is the girl Miles met at school earlier and told his uncle about. Her name is Gwen, and she is from a different parallel universe. Here, we see Kingpin reminiscing about his battles with Spider-Man. At that time, Kingpin's wife and son witnessed the fight between Kingpin and Spider-Man and fled their home in fear. They were involved in an accident on the way, which led to their deaths. We understand here that the large device is a collider that opens a rift between dimensions, and Kingpin wants to use it to bring his wife and son back from another dimension instead of the ones who died. The reason Gwen and Peter Parker are in our world is that when the Green Goblin pushed Spider-Man into the collider, it opened a portal that pulled them into our world. At this time, they go to Aunt May, who takes them to Spider-Man's secret lab. There, they meet 3 other Spider People. They gather together and decide that the only way to return is through the collider, but someone must destroy it after everyone returns to their own dimension. Miles says he will be the one to destroy the collider because he is from this world and won't be affected if he stays, unlike the others. However, they mock him because he lacks experience and doesn't know how to control his powers. Peter defends him, but in the end, Miles leaves the place feeling upset. His father calls him while he's on the way, but Miles doesn't answer. Miles arrives at his uncle's house and writes him a letter to tell him everything. Suddenly, Kraven the Hunter appears and enters the house. Miles hides, but Kraven finds him. Fortunately for Miles, his invisibility power works at this moment. Kraven receives a call and removes his mask, and at that moment, we discover that Kraven is Miles's uncle. Miles is deeply shocked, puts on the mask, and jumps out the window. Kraven chases him, and a pursuit ensues, with Miles barely managing to escape. Afterward, Miles runs to his fellow Spider People to tell them what happened. While they are asking him if anyone saw him coming, the entire gang bursts in. A fight breaks out as they try to take the flash drive from the Spider People. Miles grabs the flash drive and tries to escape, but his uncle grabs him by the neck and is about to kill him. At this moment, Miles removes his mask to show his uncle that it's him, and his uncle is shocked. Kingpin is heard ordering him to kill Miles, so his uncle puts the mask back on Miles, but as soon as he lets go, Kingpin appears and kills Miles's uncle. Peter quickly rushes in and saves Miles from Kingpin's grip. At this time, Miles takes his uncle away from the battlefield. Meanwhile, Miles's father is driving a police car and sees them, so he follows their movements. Miles goes to a quiet street and begins talking to his uncle for the last time in his life, after which his uncle dies. Miles sits and cries, and his father arrives at that moment to arrest him, but Miles activates his invisibility. Miles's father goes to see who the dead person is and finds his brother. Miles returns home feeling upset and angry, and all the spider people come to comfort him, telling him that they've all been through similar experiences, losing someone close to them in battles. They bid him farewell, but Miles doesn't want to let them go because he wants to stay with them to disable the collider so none of them have to stay in this world and die. Peter tells him, if you can shock me, turn invisible, or prove you can control your powers, I'll let you come with us. Of course, Miles fails, so Peter ties him to a chair to make sure he won't follow them, saying, at the right time, I'll come get you. Miles asks him when the right time is, and Peter replies, when you master the leap of faith. The spider people leave, and Miles tries to free himself but fails. His father arrives and knocks on his door, but Miles can't open it. However, his shadow is visible under the door, so his father knows he's inside but thinks Miles is angry with him. He tells him about his uncle's death, encourages him a little, and then leaves. After Miles's father leaves, Miles tries once again to free himself, and this time he succeeds in using his strength and abilities to break free. He goes to create a unique suit for himself and then takes the leap of faith. When he feels confident in his powers, he catches up with the rest of the spider people at the collider site. The spider people have already managed to enter the collider area, but Kingpin is working quickly. They go to place the flash drive to control the collider, and as usual, Kingpin's henchmen appear, putting the spider people at a significant disadvantage. At this moment, Miles shows up and joins the spider people, but an error occurs in the collider, and the entire world begins to change. However, Kingpin orders his workers to continue operating as normal. The spider people succeed in defeating Kingpin's henchmen and proceed to place the flash drive into the collider so each of them can return to their own dimension and shut down the collider. Kingpin becomes furious when he realizes the collider has been disabled and tries to confront them. When he enters, all the spider people have already returned to their dimensions except for Peter. Peter asks Miles to shut down the collider so he can fight Kingpin, but Miles refuses and instead throws Kingpin back into this dimension, deciding to fight him alone. A fierce battle ensues, and Miles is at a disadvantage. He loses and receives the same blow that killed the previous Spider-Man. But at this moment, Miles sees his father standing nearby, cheering him on as Spider-Man. Miles gets back up, gathers his courage, and strikes Kingpin, knocking him onto the control panel, which shuts down the collider. This causes a massive explosion, after which the city returns to normal. In the end, Kingpin is arrested, and Miles reconciles with his father, officially becoming the Spider-Man of his world. In the final scene, we see Miles sitting on his bed as Gwen emerges from a portal and speaks to him. This sets the stage for the second part, which we'll summarize in the next videos. If you love Spider-Man or enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Aniflex 360 to support us and stay updated with our recap. See you in the next video.